The text from my cousin Amber popped up while I was in the middle of a work meeting. "Have you picked out your dress for the wedding yet? I'm thinking emerald green." I stared at the screen, completely confused. What wedding? My brother Ryan was dating someone named Madison, but nobody had mentioned a wedding. With shaking fingers, I called my mother. Her voice turned cold when I asked about it. "Sorry, dear. This event is only for the people we actually love." When I started crying, my father took the phone. "Some people just don't belong at family celebrations, Jackie." That night, I booked a ticket to Italy. Growing up in our suburban Pennsylvania home, I had always been the responsible one. From the time I was 10 years old, I packed my own lunches, maintained straight A's, and later worked my way through college without taking a cent from my parents. Meanwhile, my younger brother Ryan floated through life on a cloud of charm and second chances. "Jackie, help your brother with his math homework," my mother would say, even when I had my own advanced placement assignments to complete. "Jackie, give Ryan your allowance so he can go to the movies with his friends," my father would insist, though I had earned that money babysitting for the neighbors. At family gatherings, Ryan would tell embellished stories about his football games or parties, receiving enthusiastic laughter and pats on the back. When I shared news about academic achievements or career milestones, I would get polite nods before someone changed the subject. "Your brother just needs more support," my mother explained, when I questioned the double standard during my teenage years. "He struggles in ways you never had to." What my parents never acknowledged was how hard I worked for everything I achieved. I graduated at the top of my class, secured a competitive internship at a prestigious finance firm in New York, and built a successful career as an investment advisor by age 28. I now had a spacious apartment in Manhattan, a healthy retirement account, and clients who respected my expertise. Ryan, now 30, had drifted between jobs as a bartender, surf instructor, and most recently, a self-described entrepreneur with vague business ideas that never materialized. He had moved back into our parents' home twice after being evicted from apartments, and my parents had covered his credit card debt multiple times. "He just needs to find his passion," my father would say. "Not everyone is as coldly practical as you, Jackie." That comment had stung during our last Thanksgiving together, 6 months ago. I had traveled 5 hours by train to be there, bringing expensive wine and preparing 2 side dishes from scratch. Ryan had shown up 3 hours late with a case of cheap beer, yet somehow I was the one who received subtle criticism throughout the evening for working too much and never visiting enough. I had spent years trying to earn their approval. I sent thoughtful birthday gifts, called weekly, and even helped my father set up his retirement accounts with free professional advice. Nothing seemed to break through the wall of favoritism. When Ryan announced he was dating Madison 3 months ago, my parents had treated it like a royal engagement, throwing a lavish party I wasn't even invited to attend. "We just forgot to tell you about it," my mother claimed when I asked why I hadn't received an invitation. Her tone made it clear she hadn't forgotten at all. Now, sitting in my apartment with tears streaming down my face, I scrolled through flight options on my laptop. I needed to get far away from this pain. Italy had always been my dream destination, with its rich history, incredible food, and beautiful coastlines. If my family didn't want me at their precious wedding, I would create my own celebration of life. I was comparing hotels along the Amalfi Coast when an Instagram notification popped up. My cousin Amber had posted a photo with the caption, "Can't wait for the destination wedding in Positano next month. Going to be epic." I froze, my finger hovering over the screen. Positano, on the Amalfi Coast, the exact region I had been planning to visit. For a moment, I considered changing my destination. France, perhaps, or Greece, somewhere, anywhere else. But then a strange determination took hold of me. Why should I change my dream vacation because of them? The Amalfi Coast was huge. I would simply book a hotel in a different town. Sorrento, perhaps, or Ravello. Far enough away to avoid any awkward encounters, but still allowing me to experience the Italian coastal paradise I had longed to visit. With newfound resolve, I confirmed my booking at a charming boutique hotel in Ravello, 15 miles from Positano. This trip would be about me, my healing, and embracing independence. My family had made their choice. Now I was making mine. The flight to Naples felt like crossing a boundary between my old life and whatever waited ahead. I watched the sunrise from my window seat, the sky painted in strokes of pink and gold as we crossed the Atlantic. After landing, I took a private car along the winding coastal roads to Ravello, gasping at each new view of the Mediterranean Sea sparkling below the cliffs. "First time in Italy?" asked the driver in accented English. "Yes," I replied, trying to focus on the excitement rather than the circumstances that had brought me here. "Then you are very lucky. Ravello is heaven on earth." He wasn't exaggerating. Perched high on the cliffs above the Amalfi coast, Ravello was a dream of narrow stone streets, blooming flowers cascading from balconies, and panoramic views that made my heart ache. My hotel, a restored 12th century villa, welcomed me with lemon, scented coolness, and old-world charm. After settling into my room, I wandered into the town square, where a small weekend market was taking place. Artisans sold handmade ceramics, local wines, and fragrant oils. I purchased a small watercolor painting of the coastline from an elderly man who spoke no English but communicated perfectly through smiles and gestures. "You have good taste," said a voice beside me. I turned to see a woman about my age with short dark hair and a professional camera hanging around her neck. "Thanks," I said. "It reminds me that beauty still exists in the world." "That's a pretty profound observation for a tourist market," she smiled, extending her hand. "I'm Samantha. Sam to my friends, which I hope will include you since you're the first American I've met who hasn't asked me to take their photo on the edge of a dangerous cliff." I laughed, feeling a genuine lightness for the first time in days. Jacqueline. Jackie to my friends, though that list keeps getting shorter lately. "Well, it's about to get longer. Are you having dinner alone? Because I know the perfect little place away from the tourist traps." Samantha, I learned over plates of homemade pasta and local wine, was a travel photographer from Seattle. She specialized in cultural documentation and was spending 3 months capturing daily life along the Amalfi Coast for a magazine feature. "What brings you to Ravello alone?" she asked as we shared a tiramisu. I hesitated, then found myself telling her everything, from the wedding I wasn't invited to the years of feeling like an outsider in my own family. "That's genuinely awful," she said when I finished. "Family should be the ones who love you unconditionally, not the ones who make that love seem impossible to earn." "I've spent my whole life trying," I admitted. "Sometimes I wonder what's wrong with me that my own parents can't seem to love me the way they love my brother." "Nothing's wrong with you," Samantha said firmly. "Some families are just toxic, mine included. That's why I travel so much, to be honest. Distance helps me remember that I get to choose who matters in my life now." Over the next 2 days, Samantha became my unexpected ally. We explored Ravello together, hiking to Villa Simbrone with its terrace of infinity, overlooking the endless blue sea, and visiting the lush gardens of Villa Ruffolo. She took photos while I sketched in a notebook I'd purchased in town. For hours, we didn't talk about family or pain, just about beauty, history, and the perfect lighting for photographs. On our 3rd evening, Samantha had to work, so I decided to try a small family-owned restaurant she had recommended in the heart of town. I was enjoying a glass of local white wine and watching the sunset cast golden light across the ancient buildings when I noticed a young woman at a nearby table. She was attractive, with carefully highlighted blonde hair and an expensive-looking sundress, but what caught my attention were the tears she was trying to discreetly wipe away. Normally, I would have minded my own business, but something about her distress resonated with me. When she got up to visit the restroom, leaving her purse and half-finished meal, I made a split-second decision. As she returned, I smiled gently. "I hope this isn't intrusive," I said, "but I noticed you seem upset. I'm eating alone and would be happy to share my table if you'd like some company." She hesitated, then nodded gratefully. "That's really nice of you. I could use a friendly face right now." The waiter helped move her things to my table, and she introduced herself as she sat down. "I'm Madison. Sorry for the emotional display. I'm supposed to be having the most romantic time of my life, but it's turning into a nightmare." "I'm Jackie," I replied, my heart suddenly pounding. "Are you here on vacation?" "I'm here for my wedding, actually," she said, and my world tilted on its axis. This was Madison, my brother's fiancée. the woman who would be marrying into the family that had rejected me. And she had no idea who I was. "My fiancé and I are getting married in Positano this weekend," she continued, oblivious to my shock. "At least, we're supposed to be. Now I'm not so sure." I knew I should tell her who I was immediately. I knew I should excuse myself and leave. But a combination of curiosity and a strange, detached fascination kept me silent as Madison began to pour out her heart to a woman she believed was a complete stranger. "Everything was perfect when we planned this," Madison said, taking a long sip of the wine I'd ordered for her, "a destination wedding in the most beautiful place on earth. Both our families together in paradise. But now," I nodded sympathetically, still reeling from the coincidence. "Wedding planning can be stressful, I hear." "It's not even the planning anymore. It's Ryan." My breath caught at my brother's name. "He's been acting so strange lately. Secretive phone calls, disappearing for hours, getting defensive over simple questions." "That must be difficult," I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady. "His parents aren't helping either," she continued. "They're sweet people, but they treat him like he can do no wrong." When I mentioned I was concerned about some unusual charges on our joint credit card, his mother actually suggested I was being too controlling. I nearly choked on my wine. My parents, who had lectured me about financial responsibility since I was 12, were defending Ryan's questionable spending. "The worst part is how extravagant this wedding has become," Madison confided, leaning closer. "We started with a reasonable budget, but Ryan and his parents kept adding things. A yacht for the rehearsal dinner, vintage champagne for 200 guests, flying in a specific chef from Rome." "That sounds expensive," I said carefully. "It's completely out of control. My parents are contributing, but they're not wealthy. They're middle-class people who saved for years to give me a nice wedding. Ryan kept saying he had it covered, that he had investment opportunities coming through." She made air quotes with her fingers, her expression darkening. Now I'm finding out that wasn't exactly true. As Madison spoke, the restaurant began to fill with the dinner crowd. Waiters bustled between tables, and the volume of conversation rose around us. In this bubble of anonymity, Madison continued to unburden herself to me, completely unaware of who I really was. Yesterday, I overheard Ryan arguing with the wedding planner about payment. Apparently, several deposits weren't made when they were supposed to be. When I asked him about it, he got angry and said I didn't trust him. She twisted her engagement ring nervously. "The thing is, I'm not sure I do anymore." I found myself in the bizarre position of feeling sympathy for the woman who was about to marry into the family that had excluded me. Madison seemed genuine and kind, nothing like the bridezilla I had imagined. "Have you talked to your parents about your concerns?" I asked. My dad wanted me to get a prenup, but Ryan was so offended by the suggestion that I dropped it to keep the peace. Now I wish I'd listened. She looked down at her plate. "I love him. I really do. But there are so many red flags I've been ignoring." As Madison described her 3-year relationship with my brother, I recognized patterns I'd seen my entire life. Ryan's charm and big promises. The way he could make people feel special while subtly manipulating them. How my parents enabled his behavior while holding others to different standards. "The wedding is in 3 days, Madison said. "We have people flying in from all over the country. I don't know what to do." I was about to suggest she take some time to think clearly about such a significant life decision when her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. "I should take this. It's the venue coordinator," she said, stepping away from the table. I sat there, wrestling with my conscience. Should I tell Madison who I was? Would that help her, or just complicate things further? Before I could decide, she returned to the table, her face ashen. "The venue just canceled our reservation," she whispered, collapsing into her chair. "They said our final payment was declined, and they've been trying to reach us for days. Someone else offered to pay in full, so they gave them our date." Her voice broke. 200 guests arriving in 2 days, and we have nowhere to hold the wedding. "I'm so sorry," I said, genuinely meaning it. "Can you find another venue? In high season on the Amalfi Coast? With no additional budget?" She laughed bitterly. Everything is booked months in advance, and the deposit we already paid is non-refundable. She pressed her hands to her face. This is a complete disaster. Ryan is going to be devastated. I reached out instinctively to comfort her, placing my hand over hers. I'm sure you'll figure something out. Maybe a smaller ceremony? Madison looked up at me gratefully. You're so kind, listening to a stranger's problems. I should call Ryan now and tell him what's happened. He's out with his groomsmen on some boat trip. She pulled out her phone again, and as she did, I noticed my brother's contact photo flash on her screen. It was a picture of Ryan with his arm around her, both smiling broadly. Seeing his face after months without contact sent an unexpected jolt through me. Thanks for the wine and conversation, Jackie, Madison said, gathering her purse. You've been so nice to... Wait. She stopped suddenly, her eyes narrowing. Did you say your name is Jackie? Yes, I admitted, knowing the moment had arrived. Jacqueline, actually. Jacqueline? She repeated slowly. As in Ryan's sister Jacqueline? I nodded, unable to find words. What the hell? Her voice rose sharply, drawing glances from nearby tables. Are you following us? Is this some kind of sick joke? No. I swear this is a complete coincidence, I said quickly. I planned this trip after I found out about the wedding I wasn't invited to. I deliberately stayed in Ravello to avoid Positano. So you just happened to be in the same restaurant as me, on the same night, and decided to let me spill all these personal details without telling me who you are? Her eyes flashed with anger. How am I supposed to believe that? I know how it looks, but... Ryan told me you were manipulative and jealous, but I had no idea you'd go this far, she interrupted, standing up. Staying away from the wedding wasn't enough? You had to come spy on us? That's not what happened, I protested, but Madison was already walking away, phone pressed to her ear. I sat alone at the table, the remains of our meal growing cold. Through the window, I could see Madison on the street, gesturing angrily as she spoke on her phone. I knew with sickening certainty that she was talking to my brother, and that my peaceful escape to Italy had just imploded in the worst possible way. The next morning, I woke to frantic knocking on my hotel room door. When I opened it, Samantha stood there, still in her running clothes. There's a group of people in the lobby asking for you, she said breathlessly. They look pretty upset. The tall guy keeps saying he's your brother. My stomach dropped. How did they find me? Small town, American tourists, she shrugged. Not hard to track someone down. Do you want me to tell them you're not here? I considered hiding, avoiding the confrontation entirely, but that's what I'd done my entire life, retreated when my family turned against me. No, I said, straightening my shoulders. I'll talk to them. Would you mind coming with me? Of course not, Samantha said, squeezing my arm. I've got your back. The hotel lobby, normally peaceful with its marble floors and antique furniture, had transformed into a battleground. My brother Ryan paced near the reception desk, while my parents sat rigidly on a brocade sofa. Madison stood by the entrance, arms crossed defensively. Several other people I didn't recognize, presumably wedding guests or family members of Madison, lingered uncomfortably in the background. Ryan spotted me first. There she is, he announced, his handsome face contorted with rage. The wedding stalker. I'm not stalking anyone, I said evenly, despite my racing heart. I booked this trip before I knew where your wedding was. Oh, please, my mother interjected, rising from the sofa. Her perfectly highlighted hair and designer travel outfit contrasted with her furious expression. You've always been jealous of your brother. You couldn't stand that he was having this special day. That's ridiculous, I replied. How could I be jealous of an event I didn't even know about until my cousin accidentally mentioned it? We knew you would make trouble, my father said, joining my mother. His familiar dismissive tone cut through me like always. This is why we decided not to invite you. Some people just don't belong at real family celebrations. The lobby had gone silent. Hotel staff and guests watching the drama unfold. I felt my face burning with humiliation. I have every right to vacation in Italy, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I specifically chose Ravello to avoid your wedding. Running into Madison was a complete coincidence. Right, Ryan sneered. You just happened to befriend my fiancée and trick her into telling you all about our personal business. She didn't trick me, Madison said quietly, speaking for the first time. I approached her table. I was upset about the venue cancellation. Ryan turned to her, momentarily distracted. Babe, we talked about this. We'll figure out the venue situation. Don't air our dirty laundry in front of my toxic sister. I'm toxic? I laughed incredulously. That's rich coming from you. Madison had no idea who I was. I was just being kind to someone who was upset. Kind? My mother's voice dripped with contempt. You've never been kind a day in your life. Always judging. Always thinking you're better than everyone with your fancy job and your perfect apartment. The unfairness of her words struck me speechless. I had spent my entire life trying to earn their approval through hard work and achievement. Samantha stepped forward. Excuse me, but that's completely untrue. I've only known Jackie for a few days, but she's one of the most genuine, kind people I've ever met. And who are you? My father demanded. A friend, Samantha replied coolly. Something Jackie seems to be short on in her family. My mother rolled her eyes dramatically. Of course she's found someone to take her side. Jackie has always been good at playing the victim. I'm not playing anything, I said, finding my voice again. I came here to enjoy myself after being hurt by my family, again. I didn't follow you, spy on you, or try to ruin anything. Then why did you talk to Madison? Ryan demanded. Why didn't you identify yourself immediately? I was shocked, I exclaimed. And honestly, I was curious about the woman my brother was marrying, since no one bothered to introduce us before the wedding. We knew you would find a way to make this about you, my mother said. It's Ryan's special time, and here you are, creating drama as usual. I'm creating drama? I gestured around the lobby. You're the ones who tracked me down at my hotel to have a public confrontation. The argument might have continued indefinitely, if not for the interruption of a new arrival. An elderly woman with a cane made her way slowly through the hotel entrance, followed by a harried-looking younger woman I recognized as my Aunt Patty. Grandma? Ryan said, his angry expression faltering. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be resting at the hotel in Positano. My grandmother, Eleanor Thompson, had always been the family matriarch, a strong-willed former English teacher who had raised 3 children on her own after my grandfather died young. Now 82, she had grown frailer in recent years but had lost none of her sharp intellect. I heard my grandchildren were fighting, she said, her voice thin but commanding, and I wanted to see Jackie. I missed her at Thanksgiving. She walked directly to me, ignoring everyone else, and embraced me warmly. You look beautiful, dear. Italy agrees with you. Thanks, Grandma, I whispered, fighting tears. She turned to face the others, leaning heavily on her cane. Now, someone tell me what all this commotion is about. My mother stepped forward. Mom, you should be resting, the doctor said. The doctor said I shouldn't stress, and nothing stresses me more than family discord, Grandma interrupted. Ryan, explain yourself. My brother shifted uncomfortably under her stern gaze. Jackie showed up in Italy to spy on my wedding. She's trying to ruin everything. I see, Grandma said, though her tone suggested she didn't believe him. And why wasn't Jackie invited to your wedding in the first place? An uncomfortable silence fell. My father finally spoke. We thought it would be better that way. Less conflict. Conflict? Grandma raised an eyebrow. Between siblings who used to build blanket forts together in my living room? Things change, Mom, my mother said tersely. Jackie hasn't been part of family functions for years. Because you stopped inviting me, I pointed out. Grandma sighed deeply. This is disappointing. Very disappointing indeed. She looked directly at Ryan. Especially after all I've done for you. Ryan paled visibly. Grandma, we can talk about that later. Talk about what? Madison asked, moving closer. Nothing, Ryan said quickly. Just some family business. If by family business you mean the $60,000 you borrowed from your grandmother's retirement fund, then yes, I suppose we could discuss it later, Grandma said calmly. The lobby fell completely silent. Madison's mouth dropped open. $60,000? Ryan, you told me you had investors for your business idea? I do, Ryan stammered. Grandma is an investor. It's all legitimate. Except you haven't signed any paperwork, Grandma continued relentlessly. And when I asked about repayment last month, you said you needed another $10,000 for unexpected expenses, which I provided because I believed in you. My parents looked as shocked as everyone else. Mom, why didn't you tell us about this? My father asked. Because Ryan swore me to secrecy, she replied. He said it was a surprise business venture that would benefit the whole family. But then I received my bank statement yesterday, and I'm starting to wonder if I've been too trusting. The implications of her words hung in the air. Had my brother been exploiting our elderly grandmother? Had he used her money to fund his extravagant wedding? This is exactly what Jackie wants, Ryan said desperately, to turn everyone against me before my wedding. No one is turning anyone against you, Grandma said firmly. I'm simply stating facts that have nothing to do with your sister. Madison stepped away from Ryan, her expression horrified. You told me your business was doing well. You said that's how you could afford all the wedding upgrades. It will do well, Ryan insisted. Once we secure the patents and— What patents? Madison interrupted. What exactly is this business? Ryan's explanation was cut off by the arrival of the hotel manager, who politely but firmly suggested we continue our family discussions somewhere more private. We were escorted to a small meeting room off the main lobby, where the confrontation continued to escalate. Despite the shocking revelation about my grandmother's money, my parents still somehow found ways to blame me for creating tension. My mother claimed I had deliberately orchestrated this drama to undermine Ryan's happiness, while my father suggested I had influenced my grandmother against my brother. Through it all, Samantha remained steadfastly by my side, occasionally squeezing my hand in silent support. Madison had grown quiet, her earlier anger toward me now replaced by confusion and distress as she processed the financial deceptions. What should have been a joyful wedding week had devolved into chaos, with family secrets exposed and trust shattered. And somehow, in the eyes of my parents, it was still all my fault. The next 24 hours brought a cascade of disasters for my brother's wedding plans. Following the revelation about my grandmother's money, Madison's parents demanded a full accounting of the wedding finances. What they discovered sent shockwaves through both families. Ryan had not only borrowed from our grandmother, but had also maxed out 3 credit cards, taken a high-interest personal loan, and even sold Madison's car without her knowledge, replacing it with a leased vehicle and pocketing the difference. The money had gone toward creating the illusion of wealth and success, including the lavish destination wedding that was now crumbling before everyone's eyes. By the following afternoon, I learned through Samantha's reconnaissance that multiple vendors had withdrawn from the wedding due to bounced checks and non-payment. The photographer canceled after discovering their deposit check had never actually been sent. The florist, caterer, and band followed suit. It's a complete meltdown, Samantha reported after returning from a coffee shop where she'd overheard Madison's bridesmaids discussing the situation. The guests are stranded, the venue is gone, and now they're all scrambling to change their flights home. I sat on my hotel balcony, watching the sunset paint the Mediterranean in shades of gold and pink. I should feel vindicated, but I just feel sad. Because despite everything, they're still your family, Samantha said gently. Not just that. I'm sad for Madison. She seems like a decent person who got caught up in Ryan's fantasy world. As if summoned by my words, my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered hesitantly. Jackie? It's Madison. Her voice sounded tired. Can we meet? Just the 2 of us? 30 minutes later, we sat at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Madison looked exhausted, her earlier perfect appearance now disheveled, her eyes reddened from crying. I owe you an apology, she began. I accused you of stalking us when you were just trying to be kind to a stranger. It's okay, I said. It was an impossible coincidence. Nothing about this situation is okay, she replied bitterly. The wedding is officially canceled. We can't afford to pay the remaining vendors, and without a venue, there's no point anyway. She twisted her engagement ring nervously. My parents are livid. They spent thousands on flights and accommodations for our relatives. "I'm really sorry," I said, and meant it. "Ryan insists he can fix everything if we just give him time, but I don't know what to believe anymore." She looked up at me. "Your parents are blaming you for all of this, you know." I couldn't help but laugh. "Of course they are. That's their pattern. They're saying if you hadn't shown up in Italy and created drama, we could have found another venue." She shook her head. "As if your presence caused our payment to bounce." We sat in silence for a moment, two women connected by a man who had hurt us both in different ways. "Can I ask you something?" Madison finally said. "Why do they treat you that way? Ryan always described you as cold and judgmental, but you seem normal." I considered the question carefully. I've asked myself that my entire life. The best answer I've come up with is that some families need a scapegoat. I was chosen for that role early, and nothing I've done has ever changed it. Madison nodded slowly. "I think I'm starting to see that now." Our conversation was interrupted by my phone ringing again. This time it was my mother. I hesitated, then answered on speaker so Madison could hear. "Jackie, we need to talk," my mother said, her voice uncharacteristically conciliatory. "Your father and I have been thinking, and we may have been too harsh earlier." "Really?" I said skeptically. "Yes. Families should stick together in times of crisis. We'd like you to come to Positano tonight." "Why?" "To help us sort out this wedding situation. You're good with money and planning. Maybe you can help salvage something from this mess." I closed my eyes, recognizing the familiar pattern. When my family needed something from me, suddenly I was welcome. The moment my usefulness ended, I would be cast aside again. "I'm busy tonight," I said. "I have dinner plans with Samantha." "You can bring your friend," my mother said quickly. "Please, Jackie. Ryan is devastated. He needs his sister." I looked at Madison, who rolled her eyes, clearly seeing through my mother's manipulation. "I'll think about it," I said, ending the call. "They want your money," Madison said bluntly. "The hotel in Positano is demanding payment for rooms they've already occupied, and they can't afford it." "How do you know that?" "Because Ryan asked if my parents would cover it, and they refused." She twisted her ring again. "I should probably give this back to him." Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a notification from my investment firm. It was an automated security alert about an attempted access to my accounts from an unrecognized device. A cold feeling settled in my stomach as I opened the email for details. The attempt had been made just 20 minutes ago, using my credentials but failing the two-factor authentication. The location was listed as Positano, Italy. "What's wrong?" Madison asked, noting my expression. "Someone just tried to access my investment accounts," I said slowly. "From Positano." "You don't think?" I was already dialing my financial advisor in New York. After verifying my identity, he confirmed the details. "The attempt included your social security number and account password," he explained. "But they couldn't complete the security questions or provide the authentication code. We've locked the accounts as a precaution." "How much could they have accessed?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Your full portfolio. Just over $2 million. I ended the call in a daze. My brother had tried to steal my life savings just hours after confronting me in my hotel. While my parents were calling me with faux reconciliation, Ryan was attempting to drain my accounts. "I can't believe this," I whispered. Madison reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "I can, and I'm so sorry." In that moment, something shifted between us. Two women who should have been sisters, in law, finding unexpected solidarity in the wreckage of my brother's deceptions. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to report this to the police. It's identity theft and attempted fraud." "But he's your brother," Madison finished for me. "Exactly." I sighed deeply. "What about you? What will you do now?" She finally pulled the engagement ring from her finger and placed it on the table. "I'm going to return this, then figure out how to enjoy the rest of my time in Italy as a very expensive, unplanned solo vacation." As we parted ways, I promised to meet her again the next day. Walking back to my hotel, I felt strangely calm despite the earthquake that had just rocked my world. My brother had tried to steal from me. The family that had rejected me was now desperately in need of my help. The script had flipped entirely, but I wasn't sure I wanted a role in this new version of our family drama either. Back at my hotel, I found Samantha waiting anxiously. After telling her everything, we spent the evening researching my legal options and adjusting security on all my accounts. I sent emails to my employer and financial institutions documenting the fraud attempt, just in case. "Do you think you'll help them?" Samantha asked as we shared a bottle of wine on my balcony. "Your family, I mean." I looked out at the twinkling lights of Ravello against the night sky. I don't know. Part of me wants to book the next flight home and never look back. And the other part is thinking about my grandmother, I admitted. She doesn't deserve to be stranded here or to lose her retirement savings. Whatever I decide, it needs to protect her. As we discussed possibilities, a text from Madison arrived with a single line. "You should check your email. I sent you something important." The email contained no message, just an attachment. When I opened it, I found myself looking at screenshots of text messages between Ryan and someone named Tiffany. "Who's Tiffany?" Samantha asked, reading over my shoulder. The answer became immediately clear as we scrolled through dozens of intimate messages spanning the past 3 months. Tiffany was one of Madison's bridesmaids, and she had been having an affair with my brother throughout the wedding planning. Even worse were the messages where Ryan discussed me. "My sister's loaded, but she's such a cold bitch," one read. "She'll never help us out, so don't worry about the money. I have other plans." Another. "Jackie won't be at the wedding. My parents agree she would just judge everyone and ruin the vibe. Some people don't deserve family." The final screenshot was from earlier that day, after our confrontation. "Plan B didn't work out. Security questions too hard. We need to try the sympathy angle with Jackie. Mom's calling her now." I set down my phone, utterly numb. The attempted theft of my savings hadn't been an impulsive act of desperation. It had been a calculated Plan B after their wedding finances collapsed. And the worst part? Even now, they were still trying to manipulate me, seeing me not as a person or family member, but as a solution to their financial problems. "What are you going to do?" Samantha asked quietly. I looked at her. This woman who had shown me more genuine care in 3 days than my family had in years. "I'm going to protect myself and my grandmother," I said firmly. "And then I'm going to enjoy the rest of my vacation in Italy with my new friend. The rest of them can figure out their own mess." Morning brought a flurry of increasingly desperate messages from my family. My mother's texts evolved from gently persuasive to emotionally manipulative within hours. "We've always loved you, Jackie. Ryan made a terrible mistake, but family forgives. Your father and I are at risk of losing our return flight deposits if we can't pay the hotel bills. Your grandmother is asking for you. Don't punish her for Ryan's mistakes." My father called twice, leaving voicemails that alternated between awkward apologies and subtle guilt trips. "We may have been too quick to judge you, honey. We've always been proud of your success. That's why we know you're the responsible one who can help us now." Most surprising was a text from Ryan himself. "I messed up bad, sis. I have a problem with gambling. It started small, but spiraled out of control. I need help, not just money. Please meet with me." I showed the messages to Samantha over breakfast at a sun-drenched cafe overlooking the coast. "What do you think? Is the gambling confession genuine?" "It might be," she admitted, "but the timing is suspicious. He only admitted it after being caught trying to steal your money." "That's what I thought, too." I stirred my cappuccino thoughtfully. "I do need to see my grandmother, though. She doesn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this." After breakfast, I arranged to meet my grandmother at a neutral location, a garden restaurant halfway between Ravello and Positano. Samantha accompanied me but promised to keep her distance to give us privacy. Grandma Eleanor arrived accompanied by my Aunt Patty, who discreetly withdrew to a separate table after helping her mother get settled. "You look well, Jackie," Grandma said, reaching for my hands across the table. "Better than the rest of us, certainly." "Are you okay?" I asked. "This whole situation must be stressful for you." "At my age, I've seen enough family drama to develop a certain immunity," she smiled wryly. But yes, this is particularly disappointing. We ordered tea, and as we waited, Grandma filled me in on the chaos unfolding in Positano. Most of the wedding guests had already departed or rebooked to other Italian destinations. Madison's parents had returned to America, taking their daughter's bridesmaids with them, but leaving Madison behind to sort things out. My parents were frantically trying to negotiate with the hotel to avoid additional charges. And Ryan? I asked hesitantly. Claims he has a gambling addiction, Grandma said, her expression skeptical. Perhaps he does, but that doesn't explain all his behavior. You mean the affair with the bridesmaid? Grandma raised an eyebrow. You know about Tiffany? Madison forwarded me some texts, I explained. She found them on Ryan's phone yesterday. Poor girl, Grandma sighed. She deserved better. She looked at me pointedly. As did you, all these years. Her direct acknowledgement of how I'd been treated brought unexpected tears to my eyes. You noticed? Of course I noticed. Your mother always favored Ryan, just as my mother favored her brother. Family patterns repeat unless someone consciously breaks them. She patted my hand. I should have spoken up sooner. It's not your responsibility, I said. Perhaps not, but I regret my silence nonetheless. She straightened in her chair. Now, about my retirement funds. I've been thinking about that, I said carefully. I'd like to help you recover what Ryan took, but I don't want to bail out my parents or brother. Nor should you, Grandma agreed firmly. They made their choices. We spent the next hour developing a plan. I would cover my grandmother's immediate expenses and arrange for her comfortable return to the United States. I would also establish a trust to replace the money Ryan had taken, structured so that neither he nor my parents could access it. What about you? Grandma asked as we finished our tea. Will you return to New York immediately? Actually, I think I'll finish my vacation as planned, I said. Italy is beautiful, and I've made a good friend in Samantha. Excellent, Grandma smiled. Living well is the best response to those who've hurt you. As we prepared to leave, my grandmother gripped my hand tightly. One more thing, Jackie. I want you to know how proud I am of the woman you've become. Strong, successful, and compassionate despite everything. Some people don't appreciate what they have in front of them, but I do. Her words healed something deep inside me that had been broken for years. For the first time, I felt truly seen by a member of my own family. We were saying our goodbyes when commotion erupted at the restaurant entrance. My mother and father appeared, followed by a subdued-looking Ryan. Spotting us, they hurried over, ignoring the host trying to seat them properly. "Jackie!" my mother exclaimed with forced brightness. "We've been looking everywhere for you." "I'm not hiding," I replied evenly. "I'm having tea with Grandma." "We need to talk as a family," my father said, pulling up chairs without waiting for an invitation. "I've said everything I need to say," I told them. "Please, Jackie," Ryan interjected, his handsome face arranged in a perfect mask of contrition. "Just hear me out." Against my better judgment, I nodded for them to continue. What followed was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. My mother claimed the wedding exclusion was all Ryan's idea and that she had fought for me to be included. My father offered an apology so generic it could have been applied to any situation. Ryan launched into a tearful confession about his gambling addiction, claiming he'd been seeking help in secret but had relapsed under wedding pressure. "I need treatment," he concluded, eyes downcast. "But the programs I've researched require upfront payment, and I've already caused so much financial damage to the family." The implication hung in the air like a noxious cloud. They weren't just asking for hotel money anymore. They wanted me to fund Ryan's gambling treatment too. "I'm sorry for your struggles," I said carefully, "but I think it's important we establish some boundaries." "Boundaries?" My mother looked affronted. "He's your brother." "The same brother who tried to steal my life savings yesterday," I pointed out. "He wasn't thinking clearly," my father argued. "The addiction—" "Stop." My grandmother's voice cut through the excuses. "Jackie has every right to protect herself. You should be ashamed of asking her for anything after the way you've treated her." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table, broken by the arrival of an unexpected figure. Madison approached, looking composed and determined. In her hand, she carried her phone. "I thought I might find you all here," she said. "Sorry to interrupt, but I have something Jackie needs to see." Ryan stood abruptly. "Babe, we should talk privately." "There's nothing private to discuss," Madison said coldly. She handed me her phone. "These are new messages from this morning, between Ryan and Tiffany." I scrolled through the conversation, my heart sinking as I read. Ryan had messaged Tiffany, working the family angle with Jackie today. "If she buys the gambling story, we might get enough to cover what we need plus a little extra. Then we can meet up in Barcelona as planned." Tiffany had responded, "What about Madison? Is she still suspicious?" Ryan's reply, "She's too trusting. By the time she figures anything out, we'll be long gone." I handed the phone back to Madison, who turned to face Ryan. "I guess I was too trusting," she said quietly. "Until now." Ryan's face transformed from contrition to fury in an instant. "You're spying on my messages? That's a violation of my privacy." "That's what concerns you right now?" Madison laughed incredulously. "Not the fact that you were planning to abandon me after taking my family's money? Not the fact that you've been sleeping with my bridesmaid for months?" My parents sat frozen, unable to defend their son in the face of such damning evidence. My grandmother shook her head sadly. "The gambling addiction was a lie too, wasn't it?" I asked Ryan directly. His silence was answer enough. "I think we're done here," I said, standing up. "Madison, would you like to join Samantha and me for dinner tonight? I know a lovely place in Ravello." "I'd like that very much," she replied, composure intact despite everything. As we turned to leave, my mother grabbed my arm. "You can't just walk away from family," she hissed. I gently removed her hand. "I'm not walking away from family," I said. "I'm walking toward people who actually treat me like family should." The expression on her face as I walked away with Madison, toward Samantha waiting nearby, was one I'll never forget, a mixture of shock, anger, and perhaps, for the first time, a glimmer of understanding about what she had lost. 6 months after the Italian wedding disaster, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. Autumn in New York brought crisp air, golden leaves in Central Park, and a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. The aftermath of the Amalfi Coast confrontation had been predictably messy. My brother Ryan had initially threatened legal action, claiming I had sabotaged his wedding. When reminded that he had attempted to hack my financial accounts, he quickly backed down. My parents had cycled through anger, manipulation, and finally stony silence when I refused to bail them out financially. True to my word, I had helped my grandmother. We arranged for her comfortable first-class flight home and established a trust fund to replace the $70,000 Ryan had borrowed. Additionally, I helped her sell her home in my parents' neighborhood and purchase a lovely condo in my building in Manhattan, where she was now thriving with newfound independence and proximity to her favorite granddaughter. "Best decision I ever made," Grandma Eleanor told me over our weekly Sunday brunch. "I should have moved closer to you years ago." The most surprising developments came from unexpected places. Madison had spent her final week in Italy with Samantha and me, forming a friendship that continued after our return to America. She had permanently called off her engagement to Ryan, moved out of their shared apartment, and started fresh in Seattle, where she was now dating a kind veterinarian she had met through her work at an animal rescue. "He's the complete opposite of Ryan," she told me during our monthly video call. "Honest, humble, and he actually pays for things with his own money. Revolutionary concept." Samantha had turned our Italian adventure into a successful photo essay for the magazine that employed her, featuring the hidden gems of the Amalfi Coast. The publication had led to a book deal, and she now divided her time between Seattle and New York, staying in my guest room during her East Coast visits. As for my family, the boundaries I had established remained firm. My parents had made half-hearted attempts at reconciliation, always with strings attached. I responded with polite distance, engaging only when necessary and always with clear expectations. Ryan had eventually moved to Barcelona, where social media suggested he was continuing his pattern of charm and deception with a new social circle. The most meaningful change was internal. I no longer blamed myself for my family's treatment or questioned my worth based on their validation. Therapy had helped me recognize that their behavior reflected their limitations, not mine. On a chilly October evening, I hosted a small dinner party in my apartment. Grandma Eleanor was there, of course, along with Samantha, who was in town for a photography exhibition. Madison had flown in specifically for the event, accompanied by her new boyfriend, James. My cousin Amber, who had inadvertently alerted me to the wedding, had also been invited after reaching out to apologize for her unwitting role in the drama. "I had no idea they hadn't invited you," she had explained. When I found out what happened, I was horrified. Our gathering was warm and lively, filled with genuine laughter and conversation. As we enjoyed pumpkin cheesecake for dessert, Madison raised her glass. "To Jackie," she said, "who showed me what real family looks like." "To chosen family," Samantha added, smiling. "To boundaries and new beginnings," Grandma chimed in with a mischievous twinkle. As we clinked glasses, I felt a profound sense of contentment. The pain of rejection had transformed into the joy of authentic connection. The family that had excluded me from a wedding had unwittingly set me on a path to creating something much more valuable: relationships based on mutual respect and genuine caring. The next morning, I received 2 surprising pieces of mail. The first was a wedding invitation from Madison and James, who had decided on a small ceremony in Washington State the following spring. The handwritten note inside read, "You were the silver lining in my almost wedding disaster. I can't imagine celebrating without you." The second was an invitation from Amber for her upcoming holiday party, with a bold notation, "No Ryan, no aunt and uncle. I'm breaking the family pattern too." Life continues to unfold in unexpected ways. Last week, I received a promotion at work that will involve occasional travel to our European offices. Samantha immediately volunteered to meet me for weekend adventures. Grandma Eleanor has signed up for Italian cooking classes and insists we plan another trip to the Amalfi Coast to replace the bad memories with good ones. The journey from exclusion to empowerment wasn't easy, but it taught me the most valuable lesson of all. Family isn't just about blood relation. It's about who shows up, who tells the truth, who stays when things get hard. Sometimes the family we choose brings more genuine love than the family we're born into. And sometimes, the most painful rejection leads us exactly where we need to be. I now understand that my worth was never determined by my family's ability to recognize it. It was always there, waiting for me to claim it for myself. Have you ever experienced rejection from people who should have loved you unconditionally? How did you respond? And what did you learn from that experience? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If this journey resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to hear that they aren't alone in family struggles. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it brings some comfort or clarity to your own journey of finding where you truly belong.